Another one, the big rip, that if the expansion of the universe accelerates at a continued rate and it goes unchecked, the universe will be expanding in 22 billion years. It'll be expanding faster than the fabric of space-time can keep up with it. And it'll just rip. And I'm terrified by it.
The room was silent, except for the faint hum of a machine designed to pierce the deepest mysteries of the universe. This wasn't just any computer. It was Google's most advanced quantum system, a machine so delicate, so incomprehensibly powerful, that even its smallest calculations brushed against the very edges of physics. And then, without warning, it died. Screens went black. Logs froze mid-line. The core simply stopped. What made the silence unbearable wasn't just that the machine had failed. Computers fail every day. What shook everyone in that room, and what continues to haunt them still, was when it failed. The shutdown happened at the exact moment the system was simulating one of the most terrifying fates ever imagined for the cosmos, the Big Rip. A theoretical ending so absolute, so cruel, that it makes every other apocalypse sound merciful in comparison. The Big Rip is the nightmare of nightmares. Imagine the universe as a great fabric stretched across the void. Galaxies stitched into its weave, stars threaded like beads of light, planets dangling delicately from its seams. But what if that fabric doesn't hold? What if the force stretching it never slows down, never relents, but only pulls harder with each passing moment? At first, it would tug apart galaxies, separating them like scattered embers. Then it would rip the stars from their homes, scatter planets into nothingness, and finally, in the most terrifying act of all, shred the atoms themselves. The very building blocks of everything. Gone, undone, unmade. That is the Big Rip. And it was this apocalypse that the Willow processor, Google's quantum marvel, dared to simulate. 105 qubits, whispering at the edge of coherence, holding together a dance of probabilities that no ordinary machine could ever begin to capture. It was the first system capable of error-corrected runs long enough to peer into the far reaches of cosmic possibility. And as it spun its miniature model of destruction, something happened. The logs showed errors, not random glitches, not the chaotic signatures of cosmic rays that researchers had seen countless times before. No, these were patterned, almost deliberate, almost alive. The bursts of failure inside the machine looked uncannily like the very instabilities the Big Rip predicts for the universe itself. The Willow processor wasn't just crashing, it was echoing the catastrophe it was simulating. It was as though the boundary between machine and model had dissolved, and the processor had, for a fleeting instant, become the thing it was calculating. Imagine being there in that moment, watching numbers flicker into nonsense, calculations unraveling like a frayed thread, and realizing that the collapse happening inside the computer mirrored the collapse it was meant to predict. You'd feel it, wouldn't you? That chill crawling up your spine, that sense that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't an accident at all, that the machine had glimpsed something it wasn't meant to see, something too heavy for even its silicon heart to bear. Scientists don't like words like omen or warning. They prefer probabilities, error margins, statistical likelihoods. But even the most disciplined minds in that room couldn't help but feel it. That strange shiver of coincidence that doesn't feel like coincidence at all. A computer doesn't usually stop at the exact moment it confronts the universe's ultimate unraveling. Unless, of course, there's more to the story than we dare to admit. Was it simply a glitch? Some unlucky particle striking at the wrong time? Shutting down a fragile quantum state? Or was it something else? Something hidden in the mathematics of the cosmos itself? A truth so immense that even a machine designed to simulate reality couldn't contain it. For the first time in human history, we have machines powerful enough to create echoes of the universe within themselves. Little pocket realities, spinning on chips no larger than a fingernail, rehearsing the destinies of stars, galaxies, and time itself. And when one of those simulations stumbles, when the echo falters and dies, what if it's not just the machine that fails, but the cosmos whispering back to us through its silence? The shutdown of Willow wasn't the end of an experiment. It was the beginning of a question, one that no one in that room was ready to ask out loud. The scientists stared at the dead screens as if they were staring into a grave. No alarms had gone off, no flashing red lights, no polite message saying, "Simulation failed." Just silence, a suffocating, unnatural silence. And behind that silence, a realization that felt heavier than the air they were breathing. Something inside the machine had mirrored the collapse it was trying to calculate. The Big Rip had always been a theory, a frightening possibility whispered in academic halls and just scribbled across equations. But in that moment, it stopped being just an idea. For those who witnessed Willow's shutdown, it became something visceral, something that crawled under the skin and stayed there, because the timing was too sharp, too cruel. The machine didn't fail before the simulation began, or long after it ended. It died at the moment the universe itself was supposed to die. What does that mean? That's the question no one could answer. The Big Rip isn't just about stars and galaxies being torn apart. It's about everything. It's about you, about me, about the fragile threads that hold every molecule together. Picture stretching a rubber band until it snaps, not just once, but snapping the very idea of connection itself. That's what the Big Rip threatens. Families, nations, oceans, memories. All undone because the universe itself can no longer hold its shape. And now imagine a machine, a miracle of human ambition, holding that apocalypse in its circuits. For a fleeting instant, Willow carried the weight of the universe's destruction inside itself. And then, like a candle smothered in the dark, it went out. The logs weren't comforting. They didn't read like the usual chaos of a malfunction. The error spikes had a rhythm, a shape. To the scientists who studied them, it was like listening to the heartbeat of something struggling to stay alive and failing. These weren't just corrupted calculations. They were signatures that resembled the very instabilities the Big Rip describes. The machine didn't just crash, it unraveled. Of course, the rational mind insists on explanations. Maybe it was a cosmic ray. Maybe some stray particle slipped through shielding and struck at the worst possible moment. Quantum computers are fragile after all. A single invisible spark can shatter an entire run. That's the safe answer, the one you cling to if you want to sleep at night. But then there's the other answer, the one no one wants to say out loud. What if Willow didn't just model the collapse of the universe? What if it briefly touched it? What if in simulating the end of everything, it brushed against something so real, so inevitable, that even a machine couldn't withstand it? Dark energy has always been a mystery. We know it's out there, pushing the universe to expand faster and faster. For years, we told ourselves it was stable, unchanging, a quiet backdrop to the drama of galaxies. But then the data began to shift. New measurements whispered of something far more sinister, a phantom version of dark energy that grows stronger as the universe expands, feeding on itself like a fire that refuses to die. If that's true, then the Big Rip isn't just possible. It's inevitable. And Willow? Willow may have been the first witness. The thought is terrifying, that inside a lab filled with glowing monitors and sterile white walls, humanity's most advanced machine may have glimpsed the unraveling of everything. And in doing so, it collapsed under the weight of that truth. Was it coincidence? A glitch? Or was it a warning woven into the fabric of reality itself, whispered not in words but in silence, in shutdown, in failure? No one can say. But one thing was certain. After that night, no one looked at the Big Rip the same way again. What had once been an abstract terror scribbled in equations was now tied to a machine, a real event, a silence that could not be ignored. And deep down in the quiet corners of their minds, the scientists began to wonder, if even our strongest machines can't bear the weight of the universe's end, how can we? For days after the shutdown, the lab felt different. The people who worked there were still scientists, still engineers, still bound by equations and logic. But something in their eyes had changed. They walked the hallways with the quiet heaviness of people who had seen something they weren't supposed to see, something they couldn't quite explain and couldn't fully ignore. The Willow processor was rebooted, checked, rebuilt in parts. On paper, it was fine, perfectly functional. But the silence that had swallowed it during the Big Rip run hung over the team like a shadow. They weren't just asking technical questions anymore. They were asking human ones. What does it mean when a machine, designed to reflect the universe, breaks at the very moment it confronts the universe's end? Some dismissed it as coincidence, a cruel trick of timing, nothing more. But others couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, there was a message in the breakdown. Not a literal one, no flashing code or hidden signal, but something deeper, a reminder of fragility, a mirror of reality itself. Because if the Big Rip is real, then everything we know, everything we love, is already borrowed time. Galaxies, stars, families, moments, all of it stretched thinner and thinner until nothing remains. And standing in that lab, watching Willow collapse into silence, the thought became unbearable. The machine wasn't just showing numbers on a screen, it was holding up a mirror, reflecting what it means to exist in a universe that one day will not. And yet, hidden in the terror, there was something else, a strange kind of wonder. For the first time in human history, we had built something powerful enough to ask the universe its most impossible question. How do you end? And the universe had answered, not with equations or charts, but with silence. A silence so loud it shook everyone who heard it. That silence did not mean the journey was over. Quite the opposite. It meant humanity had finally reached a frontier worth trembling before. A place where our technology was no longer just solving problems, but daring to stare into the abyss itself. The shutdown wasn't failure. It was a threshold. Think about it. In the palm of a hand, on a chip no larger than a fingernail, we created a miniature cosmos, a fragile echo of the real one. And in that tiny echo, we saw destruction reflected back at us. If that isn't a miracle, what is? We are fragile. Our machines are fragile. But fragility doesn't mean weakness. It means honesty. It means we are finally brushing against truths so vast that even the tools we build falter beneath their weight. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe isn't mocking us or warning us. It's reminding us that knowledge will never come without humility. Someday, perhaps soon, perhaps long after we're gone, new machines will run those simulations again. They'll push further, ask harder questions, reach deeper into the unknown, and maybe one of them won't shut down. Maybe one of them will carry the weight of the Big Rip all the way through, showing us what lies at the end of everything. But for now, what lingers is that silence. The silence of a machine that, for one fleeting moment, touched the end of time and could not go any further. So what do we do with that? Do we see it as a warning, a coincidence? Or do we see it for what it truly is, the beginning of a new kind of wonder? A reminder that even as the universe rushes toward its fate, we are here, alive, asking, reaching, daring to look it in the eye. The shutdown of Willow wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of one, a story where humanity, fragile and fearless, builds machines, not just to calculate but to dream, not just to predict but to face the terrifying beauty of reality itself. And maybe that's the real miracle. Not that a computer failed, but that we had the audacity to make one bold enough to try.